Hello, everyone. I'm Catherine Gregory, co-founder of Modern Wisdom Press, and I'm so excited about this conversation today with Tracy Shea-Porter, who has written an amazingly fun and playful book called The Yes and Business Evolution: Improv Skills for Leadership in Life. Welcome, Tracy. I'm so glad to be here with you in this conversation today.
Catherine, I'm so happy and excited to be with you too. We've been on such a journey together. I'm so excited we're having this conversation now.
Me too. And so let's just start, Tracy, because you have such an interesting background. You're the co-founder of Yes Unlimited. And I know in that work you help teams and businesses of all kinds with their communications and team building using interesting, playful methods based in improv. And so I'm just really curious if you can share about your journey, like when you first discovered improv, and if you saw in the future at that point that you would be, working with businesses and writing a book about how to use improv skills in business.
I love that question. Thank you. Well, as you'll read in the book, I started in improv in the late 1980s. I went down to a class called Theater Sports at Harbourfront in Toronto. And at the same time, I was a 20-something, business person starting out my career in communications. So basically, I spent the next 20, 30 years in business, all in marketing, communications, and sales. And alongside my business journey, I was also an improviser. I was in a comedy group for 11 years, and then what happened was I got into something called applied improvisation. And that's what the book is about. It's about applied improvisation, which is taking the skills you learn in improv, the great things that make comedy sketch groups, like active listening, giving and receiving of ideas, staying open, getting out of judgment, all the great skills that you might see on Saturday Night Live or Whose Line Is It Anyway? And what happens is we do applied improvisation for non-performance. So we go into companies, go into schools, and we do exercises that get people laughing and on their feet. And they have surprisingly deep professional and personal outcomes in terms of skills building.
Yeah, that is so fun, first of all, because you don't think about that in business. So I'm just curious, like how, in the book you talk about how improv and, this concept of yes and can really help with team communications and team building and trust and even engagement, like employee engagement and retention. So can you speak about yes and I know this is the title of your book, but it's a big principle of improv and how that works in your work with clients.
Right. You're absolutely right. Yes and is the foundation principle of improv. And, a lot of times people think when they hear yes and, that means you have to say yes to everything and agree with everything. And the interesting point about yes and is even if you don't agree, that's fine. And that's important too. It's not like you have to give up what you think or your ideas. It's more around respect and the fact that you're giving and receiving in conversation. So you're actively listening to someone without judgment. You're suspending that judgment piece, right? And you're saying, I hear you, I see you, I might have empathy for what your view is, or maybe be able to take your perspective, even if I don't agree, and then we're going to agree that, you'll listen to me, and we'll go back and forth like that, listening to one another with that kind of yes and attitude, instead of, no, I'm right, my way or the highway. And so yes and is, thinking about the world and polarization, and all the different, tenets where we're like, oh, no, I'm right. And you don't listen anymore. You're stuck kind of in your perspective. So yes and is about building and receiving each other's ideas with that kind of thoughtfulness.
And I love in the book, you have it really broken down succinctly. Like I'm hearing what you're saying is really applicable to like personal relationships. I'm thinking of my own personal relationships when you're talking about this. And you also break it down in the book for teams, for individuals, teams, and organizations. And so I'm just curious, like, can you give us an example of like what an exercise might look like when you're going in, let's say, there's a team that really is wanting to improve their communication.
Yeah.
For example, I don't know if that's a good example, but what are the kinds of exercises that I'm imagining you bring into the business and then work with on the team?
Right. So what we do is a lot. By the way, the number one request we do get from organizations is team building. And we listen to what the objectives of the company are, and then we create and customize the exercises to meet their particular objectives. And just to demonstrate, I think it would be great to do one with you right now, Catherine, a short one the reason I like to do this one is, for those watching, this is a great exercise that you can take away with you. It's really simple. You can do it at home with your family. You could do it with your coworkers. And it's called last word response. And I'm going to do it with Catherine to demonstrate. Well, we'll talk about after a little bit about what we just demonstrated. I just want you to experience it because improv really is all about experiential work, right? So in last word response, I'll say a sentence, and Catherine, your sentence will start with the last word I say. And we'll just go back and forth, until I'll stop the exercise. We'll go for a minute and just then we'll talk about how that felt and what we experienced. So my sentence will be, it's a beautiful day outside today.
Today, I'm grateful to be in this conversation with you, Tracy.
Tracy is my name. And, the thing about Tracy is my dad named me after the great actor Spencer Tracy because that was his favorite actor.
Actor and actors definitely have a skill set that I don't.
Don't cut yourself short there, Catherine. You're extremely talented and gifted communicator that has focused in on your particular set of magical skills.
Skills seem to be the foundation of improv, and I'm so curious to learn more about how this works in interpersonal relationships and taking this exercise and applying it to my own relationships.
Relationships can definitely benefit from improv because you're totally present in the moment and giving and receiving attention with one another. All right, so we'll stop there. And that was last word response. And, every conversation with last word response is different. So no matter how many times you do it, it's exciting, fun, and playful, and you're always learning something. So my question to you, Catherine, is what had to happen for that exercise to work?
I actually really enjoyed it. I was a little nervous, but what I'm getting out of it is that you have to be present in the moment. Like you really can't know what's coming. So you have to be listening deeply and present in the conversation, not scripting an answer, obviously, because I came up with some funny ones. But I enjoyed it. I surprisingly enjoyed it.
I love what you said so much because that's one of the top benefits of improv. It's almost a spiritual thing. And because improv is a practice that creates deep presence in the moment, you can't be anywhere else when you're doing improv. You don't know what's coming next. And that, I've had people say to me, I've worked with, hundreds, thousands of people doing improv over these 30 plus years. And people over and over, I hear, that voice in my head stopped while I was doing improv. I couldn't ruminate anymore. So, and there's a lot of research and studies now out that show how improv trains the brain, to be present, trains the brain to be more positive, to be more uplifting. And I have to tell you, when you do improv with people, whether it's at a comedy club where you're doing a class or with your team during a team building exercise or developing leadership skills, you never forget those people that you did improv with because you're so present. You have to listen. It's like you deeply store. There's a deep, deep connection that forms when you're doing improv.
Yeah, I feel that. And I remember you talking about Eckhart Tolle and the power of now. And I see there is kind of a spiritual connection in this magical skill set that you're bringing. Is it's about just arriving and being in this moment, without overthinking, without scripting. And I love to, guide my conversations with our authors in that way too, just more intuitively being in the moment with questions. But also I have some questions written down that will
Right.
guide the conversation. But I can see how this would really help people get out of their own heads and arrive together on a team, especially. So I'm just curious with that in mind, like, are there any case studies or examples, maybe some from the book, where you can just summarize like what happens for a team? Like maybe they're struggling with communication and then they come, or after the improv, they have arrived somewhere different.
Absolutely. In fact, there are, of course, many case studies in the book, and just focusing in on one international company that we worked with. Uh, we went in, a lot of times you're coming in, it's been after COVID, for example. Whether it's AI, whether it's the COVID, whatever it is that's going on, there's always something going on, and there's something going on in the world that causes us to have, high anxiety. There's something that could be going on in your organization, a lot of changes, disruption, whatever it is, there's always something going on, right? So we've been brought in recently with an international company where the team was really struggling to communicate after, working at home a lot and coming in. Now they were coming into the office. And that hybrid workplace is here to stay, so improv is great. Whether it's a hybrid or an in-person situation, whether it's virtual or you can be there in person. And this particular company, what I loved about this, we got up and did some simple exercises. And that's the thing I like to let people know. We're not teaching you to be a performer here, not at all. This applied improvisation is all very simple, like the exercise we just did. And it's really meant to help you inhabit that space of communication between team members. And we did a simple exercise, just, a word at a time story, where people are very relaxed and comfortable. And before you know it, what I love these moments, people just start piping up with their intimate shares in a spontaneous way. Like one person said, wow, since I've been back, it's been really challenging. I've had a lot of challenges with feeling like I'm in my body again. And now with improv here, I feel like I'm actually present and here with my colleagues, whereas it's been challenging for me to focus. And, I want to mention that because improv really does get you present and focused. And there can be a lot of distraction. Depression and anxiety have been huge around the world. And there are some studies in my book about that in terms of how do we help people have that sense of purpose together, really build that deep connection. And improv is one of the great training tools that get you there. So that's why I wrote the book, is to start spreading the word. Improv, as part of your learning and development programs, is fun, joyful, and playful, yes, and deep, connecting, collaborating, building trust, helping your team really feel like you got each other's backs and you're all in it together.
And I love that you share so many, practical, improv skill sets for teams or for anyone reading this book in the book. Like they can walk away with some exercises to take to their teams or to their family or in their relationships. And it's so chock full of practical advice. So thank you for writing this book, Tracy. I think it's really groundbreaking. And I'm just so excited to see, how this impacts not only the readers and their experience, but you and your business. And so can you tell us a little bit more about how people find you and your work at Yes Unlimited?
Yes, absolutely. Well, and I think the point about me is because I've been in the business world for years and years and years, and an improviser for years and years and years, those two things collided about a decade ago, and that's how Yes Unlimited was formed. And I have to mention, shout out to my business partner, Ralph McLeod, who is the owner of the SoCap Theater here in Toronto. And, you know, we've known each other more than 20 years. And he kind of approached me and said, you know, improv, you know, business. Why don't we do this company together? And it was so great and so successful that we incorporated it and turned it into Yes Unlimited about almost a decade ago now. So you can find me at yesunlimited.ca. And of course, the book itself is on Amazon. And it's around the world available. And I'm on LinkedIn. I have a strong presence on LinkedIn and really love to connect there and to develop business relationships.
Lovely. Thank you for circling back to my first question about how these two worlds collided and why you wrote the book. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Tracy.
Thank you, Catherine. It's been so exciting working with you.